from Grand Prairie, Texas, the beautiful Forum Lanes, located in Grand Prairie, equidistant between Dallas and Fort Worth. And as you can tell, we've got an enthusiastic crowd here on hand for the $100,000 Quaker State Open, the fourth stop on the PBA's winter tour. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Vern Lundquist, and Chris Schenkel is not with us. He's also not on vacation. It's no scoop to any of you in the Midwest, but there have been horrendous snows this week, and Chris is snowbound at Lake Tippecanoe, Indiana. Well, Chris, settle back, open up the popcorn, grab a soft drink, and enjoy this with all of us, because we're going to have an enjoyable 90 minutes. Oh, Peter and Paul Bow are close, but not quite. It's not Paul Couture, it's Pete Couture, and Pete Couture will face Mike Berlin, who came from behind last night to qualify for this fifth spot.
Well, you're right, Vern, but in all essence, he has not beaten any one of the four players in the telecast today, so he'd like to see his first victory against Mr. Couture.
We're underway with the $100,000 Quaker State Open. Nice start. So, strike up from Mike Berlin, and now Pete Couture, 32 years old, 5'8", 130 pounds. He is a slightly built youngster.
Making some last-minute changes in his grip, Vern. The thumb hole was probably a little tight. He took a little tape out, and he's running his thumb in and out just to get a comfortable feel.
He got it! Pete Couture strike up in the first, goes to the second.
Instinct profile of Pete Couture, very slightly built, but notice how his timing is all in perfect sequence. Swing, shoulder high, shoulders go back as the arm comes through, nice extension through the shot, solid at the line, good follow through, result a strike.
Going for a double in second frame, left lane. Forum lanes in Grand Prairie. Brooklyn, but he got it.
What a good break, Vern, to start out with. I'll tell you something the fans can look for today. The pair we're bowling on is 39 and 40. They can watch for lane 39 to break extremely sharp at the back end, the last 15 foot of the lane. Lane 40 goes almost straight. It's very tight.
Get back to that when we get back to 39. You might explain why that's the case, Bo. Here's Mike Berlin. Muscatine, Iowa, 34 years old, Firestone champion last year. Trying for the double himself, and he got it. Now we're tied through two frames, and now we go back to lane 39. Nelson, you might explain why you said 39 would do what it did. We'll go to the slow-mo first.
Well, Vern, here's the ideal style of Mike Berlin. Very powerful. His arm is locked all the way through the swing. Very high back swing where he generates a lot of speed, but watch his elbow. It never breaks at any point of release. All the way through the follow-through. That is perfect. That always works well under pressure. Mike Berlin, a pressure shooter, and I think one of the reasons is that he has that arm locked all the way through the swing.
Third frame, going for his third strike. Eddie, a little high.
Well, that's what we see in that particular shot. Mike Berlin, knowing the left-hand lane hooks a little more, kind of what the players call jumped on the shot. He started raising up just before he released the ball, pulling it in the nose. You have to stay down on a lane that hooks more. You have to stay what we did. Down with the shot, more knee bend. You make that ball skid a little further.
Mike will try and mark in the third now. And he got it. There we are. Pete Couture, 32 years of age, going for his third strike here in the third frame. Held solid to fourth position throughout the week. Right on the hip pin.
Just a little pull, a little anxious. He did have the crossover in the second frame, and as I said, Pete Couture depends mostly on timing, and he got his feet a little fast, pulled the ball.
Here's a man who has not yet won on the PBA Tour, and yet last year won better than $46,000 to set a record for non-winners on the tour in a single year, and he's got the spare here in the third. So we remain even through three frames.
I think the thing to watch for today, Vern, is the man that can conquer the left-hand lane. Now, we have a left-handed bowler, John Wilcox. He says he likes the left-hand lane. The right-handed players all like the right-hand lane, which is lane 40. So we look for in this match between Berlin and Couture, which is all even through two, the man who can conquer the left lane. Various adjustments they can make. They'll try each one, see which one works.
And Pete Couture is on the left lane right now. And he got it. Also today on Wide World of Sports via satellite from Garmisch, West Germany, the World Alpine Skiing Championships featuring Franz Klammer, Bernard Russi, and Herbert Plank, and the highly invitational horse race, Bo.
Well, Vern, I like Run Dusty Run in that race, but of course my predictions are about 0 for 50, but he'll do a good job out there.
I'll take Silver Series, and we'll talk about it after we get off the air. Here's Pete Couture. Did he? No, he left the 10.
The week 10, the ball not quite driving through. We said the right-hand lane's a little tighter, but Pete Couture keeps that ball in play, does not make many mistakes, and in the position he's in, leading by 20 pins, does not want to give Mike Berlin the break to take the lead or get the advantage by sitting down and giving him an open. Mike Berlin sitting cannot do anything to stop Pete Couture as long as Pete Couture does not beat himself.
Marked in the 7th. Got the spare.
The tip for people watching at home, Vern, is to watch Pete Couture. He uses all the rhythm and body motion. There's our alternate, Paul Moser, who got knocked out by Mike Berlin's clutch double in the 9th and 10th frames last night. But going back to Pete Couture, not a strong physical man, but notice how he puts the ball in play nice and smooth, a la Dick Ritker back in the 60s when he was tearing everybody up.
Of course, this is match play, head-to-head, and the winner of this match will go on to meet John Wilcox, and we'll stair-step up the top to the championship of the Quaker State Open. In the 8th, 7-10 went. Strike in the 8th. And he's got that 20-pin lead now over Mike Berlin.
Mike Berlin can hardly afford not to strike right here. Here's the ripper by Pete Couture, bowling the 5 right in the 7. A little pro spin there and just enough to drive out the 7.
That's kind of an anxious moment waiting for that 7-pin to fall, isn't it?
Well, a player almost knows he's going to get it. He knows how much power he's got on the ball. Key shot for Mike Berlin, trailing by 20.
In the 8th. That high backspin, backswing. And he did. He came right through on lane 40.
Apprehensive look on Judy Berlin, but Mike's what we say, a tough old boy out here. And right now in the 9th frame, he can even this match up.
And his 4 kids, Scott, Teresa, Kelly, and Clay, would like to see just that. Mike Berlin from Muscatine, Iowa, just south of the Quad City area, Iowa-Illinois border. Key 9th frame. Down by 10. Working for the 3-bagger. And did he? Oh, my goodness, yes.
Vern, he just jumped all over that ball. He's what we call maxed out here. He put all the lift, power, and speed he could get to hold the line and drive the pins out, and he has really put it on Pete Couture. Now this is a battle of nerves and ability. All even. Pete Couture has a possible 258, Mike Berlin a 248, but as the match stands through 8.5 frames, Mike Berlin is all even with Pete Couture.
In the 9th, Mike Berlin watching Pete Couture. He likes it, and he didn't like the pin still there.
Once again, the 10-pin not quite driving up. With the power that Pete Couture gets on the ball with that nice smooth rhythm, if he had hit a little lighter in the pocket, he would have ripped the 5 out and got another strike. But that's the in-between hit that the pros suffer so often. Not high enough to be a solid strike, but not light enough to overpower the pins.
So he'll go cross lane for the 10 in the spare here in the 9th frame. Spare in the 9th for Pete Couture, 32-year-old from Windsor Locks, Connecticut, looking for his first PBA title.
The pressure is really on Couture in a way, Vern, is that he knows that the ever-tough Mike Berlin, good clutch player, sitting on the bench, is going to get a chance to go up and double in the 10th no matter what Pete does. But Pete would like to at least get this first one. If Pete gets 1 strike here, he'll force Berlin to get 1 strike. For every strike Couture gets, he forces Berlin to get another one.
Let's watch. No.
Just quit on the ball a little bit, a little anxious. He's disgusted with himself, but he is not out of the match. The best Pete Couture can bowl is 226. Convert to 610 and fill with a strike. Mike Berlin would need 9 spare and a strike or a strike spare to win the match.
610 for the spare for Pete Couture in the 10th. Right on the nose.
Now, Couture has to really bear down after kind of a disgusting shot the first ball in 10th. He can still strike and force Berlin to strike on one of the next 2 balls to win the match. We still have the possibility of a tie.
And I think Mike knows that.
Well, the players don't lose track of the score. They've done it so often, and under this pressure, they really know what the score is.
Here's Pete Couture. Looks good and is good. So the responsibility goes back upon the shoulders of the green-clad Mike Berlin. He's checking the score with Frank Esposito just to double-check. 226 for Pete Couture.
Situation is this. If Mike Berlin strikes on this ball, he wins. If he gets 8, a spare, a strike, it's a tie. If he gets 9, spare, 9, it's a tie. If he gets 7 on any one of the shots on the first ball, he is a loser.
You did that without a computer. Not bad, Bo.
Thank you.
That high backswing, and did he find it? Yes, he did. That is a pressure shot on the PBA Tour.
And when he can put it in that position, just overpower the pins with a nice solid swing. There you saw the benefit of the locked precision swing of Mike Berlin. Under extreme pressure, it did not fail him. It went straight through the target with plenty on the ball.
Working now on his 5th strike in a row. He's got the 4-bagger. No, he does not have 5. Left
Best he can shoot is 236. He has the match.
So Mike Berlin will advance to meet John Wilcox in this stair-step competition for the $15,000 first prize in the 2nd annual Quaker State Open from the Forum Lanes in Grand Prairie. Mike Berlin from Muscatine, Iowa, takes him out. 236 for Mike Berlin, 226 for Pete Couture.
Mike Berlin with a chance to take a 11-pin lead, although he has failed to throw a double so far in this match.
Going for it right now in the 7th frame, and got it.
You know, Vern, before we went on air, I asked Mike Berlin exactly what the turning point when his big charge last night from 12th to 5th spot was.
Well, I made a little move to the right. I knew that I had to strike a little bit more than I was. I wasn't getting the 10 out very well, so I made a move to the right with about 4 games to go, and I caught a good pair, and I shot 279, and I jumped up about 5 or 6 spots, and I stayed out there the rest of the night, and it worked out pretty well.
This is Mike's 2nd appearance in the nationally televised finals. The most of it, and the 10-pin again gives him problems, Bo.
And, you know, he's really disgusted because he knew he threw that ball as well as he possibly could. It's just that the lanes are just a little tight for Mike, and the spin has given him trouble all week. You know, as he said in his audio tape, he made that charge because he was leaving a lot of what we call half-tens to the spinner and made the adjustment outside and started carrying the 10-pins. But in match play, you don't want to give your opponent take a chance, especially when you're leading. Mike's keeping the ball around the pocket, and he's 10 pins ahead this match.
And he's got the spare in the 8th. Retains his lead. And you see Mike Berlin, and
there's a shot from
our backs.
Roy Hutchins, our expert cameraman, right behind us. You're seeing John Wilcox as we see it from the podium.
6'1", 210 pounds. Uh-oh.
Maybe I put the jinx on him. I said he had to charge the pocket a little more. He charged it to the tune of the 4, 6, 7, 10. Almost disaster at this point in the match. Really trailing by this many pins. Right now he's put himself 14 down with the open frame. Going to possibly 20 to 24 down.
There's our first open frame of the afternoon, the first 2 matches. And he's now 26 down in the 8th.
The possibilities for John Wilcox are this. He can strike the 9th, 10th, and 11th frames with a 3-bagger and finish with approximately 202. That would force Mike Berlin to get good counts and mark in the 9th and 10th. Almost a must-strike here for John Wilcox.
John, who was also in the nationally televised finals here from the Forum 2 years ago in that PBA U.S. Open that was won by Paul Moser. And it looks like he's lost a little of his composure, Bo.
Well, really something has happened to John that is infrequent. With the players practicing an hour and a half before we go on the air, Vern, the right side is starting to break down and the ball's finishing better for the right-handers. The left-handers, the ball is not breaking as sharply because nobody's played on that side except for John, and that's one of the reasons his ball is not finishing.
And that is really unusual for that situation. Got the spare, though.
Well, oftentimes, as the tournament goes on from day after day, we start on Tuesday. This is Saturday. The lanes, what we call, build up a little more oil. There's fewer games bowled as we trim the field down from 240 to 24 and now down to 5. So the lanes become a little tighter. The ball does not break as sharply at the back end.
Ninth frame for Mike Berlin. Spare up. Got the strike. We were looking at some of the other finishers. Hey, in the top 48 positions, and the number 27 finisher here is a fellow by the name of Nelson Burton Jr. You said years ago that your score this week would have gotten you in the top 5.
Well, that's right. I averaged right at 215, and I would say 10 years ago when I was a steady on the tour all the time, 215 with in this bowling condition would have got you right close to the top 5 of the telecast. With today's great competition, all the good young players out here, you really have to be sharp on every game.
Mike Berlin in the 10th frame. Next up, of course, Marshall Holman from Medford, Oregon. One of the bright youngsters on the PBA tour, just 23 years old.
Mike Berlin covering the spare will have 208 with a strike in the 11th.
Thank you, Bo. And here's the way he stacks up so far. Mike Berlin defeating Pete Couture 236-226 in the first match, and then downing John Wilcox 208-190. And now he advances to meet Marshall Holman, and the winner of this match goes against Mark Roth for the $15,000 first prize.
And I don't want to say I told you so, but last night
you
on
did.
Your local telecast, I said this is the way it's going to match up. Now it gets tough. We got 3 of the toughest players on the Pro Bowlers Tour, all going against each other.
Bo picked Mike to win the first 2 matches and said it's a toss-up, and he got that 10-pin kicked out of the way to open this match. Bo. Nelson Burton Jr. and Chris Schenkel, of course, is back watching us in front of the fireplace at Lake Tippecanoe, Indiana.
First time that Mike Berlin got a break on the half-10. Just tripped it out with a 6, and here he comes. The man of the hour, Bedford Meteor.
Boy, he is fun to watch, too. Such an animated guy. Left the 4-pin.
Sharp break on the ball that Marshall Holman uses. He has to keep the ball light. His percentage is not up high. He can get a lot of splits with a sharp break. He must keep it light. Moving a little length that's on the approach. Last time we saw him, he threw a clutch double at the Ford Open in Alameda.
And last year, Marshall was in the televised finals here, losing to Henry Gonzalez, the ultimate winner. Got the spare in the first.
A place that many of the players do not see very often, even at your home, is the back end or the pin setter area of the bowling lanes, looking right down through the machine as the pins are spilling into the turret, preparing to set them back up after Marshall Holman tries to wipe them out.
It's a good place to watch your feet, huh? Here's Marshall Holman. Got it. There you go. The reaction from 23-year-old Marshall Holman.
What makes Holman and Ross so dominant on today's tour, Vern, is that hit and that hit alone almost. They can drive out what we call the weak 10 better than any player out here on the tour. Normally, a player will leave the 10-pin on that shot. Holman and Roth have a sensational percentage of carrying that hit.
In the second, right side, Forum Lanes, Grand Prairie, Texas, midway between Dallas and Fort Worth. Mike Berlin, whoops, a little high. But check that action.
Well, that's really a bad break in that the 6-pin got knocked out. It makes it a 3-10 split instead of 3-6-10. For a Pro Bowler, they should make it almost every other time. It's almost it's a 2-to-1 shot, as we see from Lee Giles in the back, but I hope he can make it.
And we'll see if Mike Berlin can right now. We've had 1 open frame so far in the competition. He got it. Absolutely. And you called it. He said he could make it, and he did, Bo.
Well, a Pro Bowler, it's just a matter of accuracy, Vern. A Pro Bowler going across lane like that, he has to hit the right side of the 3-pin and deflect the ball into the 10, and perfectly done by Mike Berlin.
There's another view at the back of the Forum Lanes here in Grand Prairie. Some of the mechanics back there working.
Quite a crew. In case anything goes wrong, they're right there to help us.
Just an idea of how many people are involved in one of these PBA stops. It's not the 5 guys who are on television. There are a lot of folks who do a lot of work to get these things accomplished. That time left it out to the right.
Mike Berlin's kind of lost it. The first match, he was bowled very well against Pete Couture, 236. Last match, he was around the pocket the first 6 or 7 frames, got a double, salvaged the match with 208. But the last 3 or 4 frames he's bowled, he's been high, light. He's fishing. Now, you notice Mike trying to drive through the ball, slips just slightly as he drives through with his arm, and he does not get the proper lift, and the ball slides by.
And once again, Bo, as he looks at the 248, he has that unusual release where he leaves his right foot on the lane, or on the approach.
Trouble.
Whoops. Open frame for Mike Berlin in the third.
He just totally missed that. It's amazing how they can make the 310 split, and then what seemingly looks like an easy spare, the 248, miss it that far. He missed that very badly, at least 3 or 4 or 5 boards. And you don't want to give a young tiger like Marshall Holman that type of break.
You know, it's interesting to me. You talk about Holman's power, and yet look at his size and weight. He's only 5'9", 140.
Rhythm and timing.
And there it is. You bet.
Now we can see where he gets it. Marshall Holman uses the full approach to generate speed and power, but notice how he keeps his low profile, like he's sliding under a shelf, arm perfectly close to his body. Now watch this tremendous release and turn at the bottom. That's all you can get on a bowling ball. You can't turn it any harder or get much more out of it. Foot perpendicular to the foul line, right in line with his target.
Marshall been a member of the PBA for the last 5 years. Last year, $71,350 in earnings.
And take a 34-pin lead right here in the 4th.
Going for his 3rd strike in a row in the 4th. Yes, he did. Marshall Holman with 3 in a row. Mark Roth has been the wire-to-wire leader in the Quaker State Open throughout the week. He opened with a 288 and did not falter at all, and he'll meet the winner of this match. It's next for $15,000 first prize. And a nice trophy from Quaker State.
Just trying to stay loosened up over there. Back to Mike Berlin. He has his hands full, his work cut out for him. He's trailing the ever-tough Marshall Holman by 34 pins.
Interesting that he did not come on the tour until he was well past 30, Bo.
Well, I knew Mike Berlin for many years, living in the Midwest. Mike from Iowa. He bowled in most of the tournaments around his home. He was establishing his business, naturally being a father. He didn't want to travel out on a tour. 2 years ago, he decided after he had his pro shop business fairly well established, he'd give the tour a whack, and he's been a sensation.
Ten pin in the 4th.
Interesting matchup here. The 1976 Firestone Tournament champions was Marshall Holman, and the 1977 champion was Mike Berlin.
And the guy who will meet the winner of this, Mark Ross, says his one unaccomplished goal thus far is to win the Firestone Championship.
I wouldn't count him out of doing anything.
Oh, dear me. Gosh, listen. That's an oh dear. That's an oh dear.
The man who went over $500,000 this week, Don Johnson, joins Earl Anthony and Dick Weber in that $500,000 club. Ernie Schlegel bowling well again, and Charlie Venerable, the best black bowler in the world, right there in the finals again. Mark Van Meter, local Bobby Meadows, who manages the bowling lanes near here. Dennis Campbell, right up there. Mike Matosic, right out the top 24.
Boy, Bobby Meadows was thrilled. He hadn't competed since '72, and he's a manager of the Don King lanes here. There's a strike for Mike Berlin. And he was really pleased. You know, Bobby was number 2, I think, after the first block. And he says, I don't believe I can hold this. Well, he picked up a nice paycheck, though. So Mike will sit down, having struck in the 5th frame. And Marshall Holman, who has strung 3 together in a row, is up next in the 5th with the lead. Some of the chandeliers here at the gorgeous Forum Lanes in Grand Prairie. There we are.
Amazing the power of that young man. He totally lost that ball at the bottom of the swing. It actually bounced on the foul line with no leverage at all, and yet he got enough spin on it to carry out the wall shot. That's the same shot he carried against Jimmy Certain in the Ford Open to win the tournament. Just shows you the margin of error when you have a good swing and a powerful ball.
And it's strictly the power, Bo, right?
Well, it's timing. Marshall's not a big fellow, by no means a physical specimen of a weightlifter caliber, but he has the rhythm and timing and the powerful wrist release at the point of release.
In the 6th.
Marshall Holman drifts a little left on his first 2 steps to get this ball in line with his swing. Notice how the right foot passes across the left. Then it's ideal all the way through. Watch how close the ball comes to his body, and watch the snap, turn, release.
And he uses all that 16 feet of approach that he can, doesn't he?
Well, he needs to generate the speed. When you throw that much hook on a ball, you have to, what we do, hold the line. You have to do it with speed. Many people ask me how a fellow like Marshall Holman gets that much power. Practice, practice, practice.
Marshall Holman with a spare, 4 strikes in a spare. Mike Berlin going for his 2nd consecutive strike in the 6th, but down by 43 pins. High backswing once again, and he got the double. Looks like he's got it back together a little bit.
Well, Mike Berlin will not quit. You have to beat Mike Berlin. He never beats himself very often. He is a tough competitor, and 33 pins is not much. As you know, in a game of bowling, a couple of strikes for you and an open by your opponent, the whole tables can turn very quickly.
Marshall Holman on the left of your screen, sitting down and watching Mike Berlin in the 7th, going for the turkey, 3 in a row. Did he get it? Yes, he did. Just behind Marshall Holman, Jeannie Halsey, who is the proprietor here at the Forum Lanes in Grand Prairie. Just get a glimpse of Jeannie dressed in green. And Mr. Quentin Wood, the president of Quaker State Oil Company. Here's Marshall Holman.
Bad shot. Marshall just pulled the ball, turned it, threw it in the nose. Got a good break, got the 610. He knows it's a bad shot. Things are going your way. Sometimes you get breaks like that, but he can't fall asleep. Mike Berlin is thinking of still winning this match.
Covered the 610, so a spare in the 7th frame for Marshall Holman from Medford, Oregon.
Interesting thing there with Holman, he threw that ball, as big a hook as he throws, there's always a possibility of chopping the 610. And he threw that ball as hard as he possibly could and flat, Vern, so the ball rolled in over in, very little chance of chopping the spare. You don't need power to make spares, you just need accuracy.
Oh, you mentioned Jeannie Halsey. That's Lowell Jackson just to the left, one of the great names in bowling. There's Jeannie Halsey on the left, and Mr. Quentin Wood, the president and chief executive officer of Quaker State. Got out of the blizzard and got down here in order to be here in attendance. There's the strike from Marshall Holman in the 8th.
A nice, relaxed, calm strike, and when you're 20 pins ahead, sometimes you can throw it like that. But Mike Berlin's job now is put the pressure back on Holman. If Mike Berlin can strike in the 8th and 9th frames, the margin will be cut to just 1 pin.
From Muscatine, Iowa. No help.
A solid 8. We saw it last week in the showboat. It is just the worst possible break you can get in a game of bowling. The very best shot you can throw. Watch this ball drive through the pins and actually chop the 5 pins straight off the 8. Mike knows it's the best he can do. Look at that 5 pin go straight back. Unbelievable. Bad break.
And I think you saw just a hint of the disgust with which Mike Berlin regarded that.
Well, that can take the wind out of your sails when he's charged up and have something like that just stop him. It's amazing. He still has a chance in the match. He still can bowl 225 and put the pressure on Holman, but he really has to regain his composure and come back in the 9th frame. It's often a letdown of 1 more frame, and the match could be over. As you can see, through 8 frames, Marshall Holman leading by 22. Berlin has a chance to close it down to just an even match almost if he can strike the 9th and 10th.
And the winner of this match meets Mark Ross for the $15,000 first prize at the 2nd Annual Quaker State Open.
That shot was more from disgust, Bern. I've almost ventured to say if he had carried that strike in the 8th frame, that Mike Berlin would have thrown that ball solid in the pocket. It's just a psychological momentum of sports. We see it in football. A team can't do anything for a while, and they're sensational. That was just one of the real bad breaks that could happen to a bowler and took the wind out of Mike Berlin's sails.
There is, Bo, as much emotion in this sport as in just about any other, is there not?
Oh, I agree. Bowling is momentum. A player can get going very well. As we say, Marshall Holman and Mark Ross have been going so well the last 6 months. Earl Anthony, a year ago, was just whipping everybody. He's kind of lost a little momentum, saying Earl. Now, Marshall and Mark will lose some of that momentum, and they won't be as dominating. Somebody else will be taking their place. They'll always be good, but the momentum is the key thing.
Those shoulders parallel, the head low. Marshall Holman looking for the double and getting the double in the 9th.
And that puts Marshall Holman in the driver's seat. All he has to do is show up for the 10th frame here, and we'll have the confrontation. Mark Roth and Marshall Holman once again.
You know, they tied last night in the position round 205-205. And they've been going after each other all week long.
That should do it.
With the next pick.
Thank you, Frank. We're ready for the final match. $15,000 to the winner, Mark Roth and Marshall Holman. I think many of us, Nelson Burton Jr., thought this might be exactly how it would wind up.
Well, it's the match to see. And I'll tell you, Mark Roth got his start in Kansas City at the King Louis Open a couple of years ago, shooting a 299. And I know he'd like to finish with a victory here and head back to where it all started.
They have met twice during this tournament, have they not?
Well, they tied in the final round, Vern, as you said, but Marshall Holman ran all over Roth in the earlier matches, 254 to 195. Mark is still practicing on the right-hand lane. He has allowed 6 practice balls, being the tournament leader, having to wait almost an hour and 15 minutes since he last rolled a shot on the TV lanes. Marshall Holman will probably start the match. This is the first shot that really counts. Friends off the lanes, adverse enemies on the lanes.
Matter of fact, one of the titles, they teamed up together to win the doubles championship.
Well, they're not splitting the money today, pal.
I don't think so.
$15,000 to the winner.
Marshall Holman opens the championship match, and he does so with a strike in the first frame.
A smooth, confident strike. He did not overpower it, just stroked it. Tell you, Mark Roth, the man's making better than $100,000 every year. His key right here in this match is to win the match. The money is secondary to this man.
He grabs hold of that ball like Dick Butkus. And there she is.
Say goodnight, kids.
Just the essence of power bowler, Mark Roth. And I remember, Bo, seeing that 299 he rolled at the King Louis Open.
And this is the style he used to get it. Just the high backswing, the cocked wrist, wide open all the way through the backswing. Notice his thumbs pointing almost directly out, then a tremendous spin and turn, elbow locked. And that's what motivates the pins. Mark taking a little extra time. I'll tell you what, he usually bowls very quickly, but against Marshall Holman, he's going to use all he can get. I talked to Mark. I know both these players very well, and Mark would just like to beat Marshall. He's just getting a little tired of Marshall taking home the money.
How much of a possible psych job do these two guys do on each other?
Well, they're going to work each other right now.
Well, that's a good way to start.
Mark walking with a determined look. He's putting it together. Marshall Holman will just try to answer the bell.
We've got a dream championship. 2 of the outstanding young professional bowlers, 2 of the stars of the tour. Marshall Holman, and look how far back he starts, Bo.
The full distance of the approach, more than 16 feet.
There, oops.
Almost got a break with the pin rolling down. The old iron jaws got him. But once again, it's a weak 10. And even Marshall Holman's ball cannot drive it out completely. The action to watch is the right side. Watch the 6-pin just lay down on the side and did not quite drive in the 10. That is not a solid tap.
Marks in the second for Marshall Holman. That's the spare. And now we'll move over to the left lane, 39, here at the Forum Lanes in Grand Prairie. By the way, Phil Petralia, the advertising manager of Quaker State Oil, sitting just beyond Marshall Holman. And there's a look at, take a look at his thumb.
Mark Roth with the sore thumb, rosin bag, and glove. He's got all the material going for him, plus the powerful ball. He doesn't want to watch Holman.
You don't mind me saying that's an ugly thumb, do you?
I think a lot of the bowlers have one of those.
Marshall Holman. Left the 10 again.
Weak 10, didn't catch it all, but Marshall stroking the ball very well. Marshall Holman cross lane. Now watch the extreme speed he uses. When he has a big hook like Holman, you have to go with a lot of speed to hold it down using extreme left side of the approach, cross lane.
So for the second consecutive frame, a spare for Marshall Holman. Mark Roth with an 11-pin lead, working on a triple, going for his 3rd consecutive strike here in the championship match with $15,000 going to the winner. Weekly average 225.8. He has led wire to wire. At one time had a 420-pin lead. And now left the 10-pin himself.
Mark knew he threw that ball as well as he possibly can. Started to run it out a little bit. Whack, solid 10. You want to see the position of Mark Roth as he comes through the shot. There is Mark Roth. Notice the thumb pointing all the way out. And puts it in a tremendous angle to spin. Now, Marshall Holman, on the other hand, is straight up and down with his thumb. He does not spin it quite as much as Mark Roth, but he gets more lift through the ball.
Spare in the third for Mark Roth, still holding on to a 10-pin lead over Marshall Holman, 26 years old, from Staten Island, New York. Nickname is Smock. And already has put together 15,905. This year, he could double that with a win in this match.
He's got the strike in the third, in the fourth.
Meanwhile, we are back live with part of the great crowd here at the Forum Lanes in Grand Prairie, the final match of the second annual Quaker State Open. Marshall Holman working on a spare up in the fourth.
And finding the strike.
Once again, we can see the release positions of Marshall Holman and Mark Roth. This is Marshall Holman. Notice how his thumb is at almost 12 o'clock, and he lifts up straight through the ball almost with a tremendous wrist and finger lift. Mark Roth is wide open, and he spins the ball more. He actually goes through it like a bullwhip. This is his hand position at the top of the swing as he's coming down through.
In the fifth frame, going for the double, not getting it. Left the 6-pin.
Just kind of babied the ball. Marshall Holman has to keep the speed, as does Mark Roth. They throw such big hooks on the back end of the lane that if they baby the ball or throw it a little too slow, it's going to snap right through. Marshall Holman is not energizing or speeding that ball up like he normally does.
Gets the 6 out for a spare in the fifth frame and continues to trail Mark Roth.
Mark going for his fourth strike in the fifth frame. He opened with a double, then spared, came back with a strike, so he's a strike up in the fifth.
Can open a 20-pin lead.
And just a really unique bowling style.
Once again, the solid 10. He could just about have Marshall Holman knocked out of this match. The 10-pin has stopped him. And I'll tell you, Roth is really trying so extra hard this week, Vern. Holman has been kidding him quite a bit since their duel in the Brunswick World Championship, where Holman defeated him 279 to 250 was the final score. And Marshall sometimes doesn't let a sleeping dog lie. And Mark Roth is out to get him.
Well, Mark Roth certainly has the look of a man who's determined, and he spares in the fifth.
Now goes to the left lane, lane 39. Powerful 6-footer.
When you have talent of this caliber, a lot depends on the condition of the lane, who favors what. I say that Mark Roth, with his a little more speed and a little more spin than Holman, has the advantage, especially on the left-hand lane.
And that's where he is right now.
Yes. Strike in the sixth for Mark Roth, and he takes the 10-pin lead once again.
It's amazing the carry power and the reaction of some of these players, especially like Mark. They can hit that light hit and just scramble them all up.
Mr. Quentin Wood of Quaker State just beyond Mark Roth, wire-to-wire leader here in the Quaker State. And here's Mark.
Got the 10-pin kicked out that time. And comes back with a strike in the sixth frame.
We can watch the match as this. Marshall Holman has what I consider the best shot on the right-hand lane. He's a little slower, a little more roll. That's on the right-hand lane, the tighter lane. On the left-hand lane, Roth has the better shot. A little more speed, a little more spin. So the job is Holman to hit the left lane, Roth to strike on the right lane to keep the match as even as it is. Right now, Holman trailing by 10 can make it all even with a strike in the seventh.
And he got the strike in the seventh, and boy, he is some kind of happy.
Pressure ball from Marshall Holman.
The crowd is almost stunned here by the competition. You can feel the electricity going through it. They don't even know how to react with these two power players out there. They're just expecting someone to break loose. Marshall Holman has put it on Mark Roth.
Mark Roth in the seventh. Right-hand lane. 10.
Once again, the 10-pin. That little extra spin, such as Mike Berlin, could not carry it. Watch the 6-pin just lay down in the channel, not driving through quite hard enough with that spin on the ball. On the left-hand lane, where the ball finishes a little more, Mark would have carried that hit.
Now, Bo, that's not a characteristic of the house. It's simply the ball, right?
Well, every lane has characteristics. On this particular pair, the right-hand lane does not break as sharply as the left-hand lane. I'd say the right-hand lane is one of the tighter lanes in this house. Out of the 60-odd lanes they have here, the right-hand lane is very tight, and it does not favor Mark Roth's game. Mark should hit this left hand almost automatically, the left-hand lane.
Working on the spare.
The match is all even, 8th frame.
Back to Marshall Holman as we look at the footwork of Mark Roth.
The unique footwork of Mark Roth, 6 steps. The only other player I've ever seen do that is Dick Weber, back when he was in his 20s and 30s. To generate a little extra speed, went with 6 steps. Look at that beautiful release and turn. Sensational.
By the way, you told me our statistician was quick, Palmer Fahlgren, and you were right. Key shot for Marshall Holman. Did he find it? No.
Same shot that has plagued Roth, the solid 10. Marshall Holman with almost ideal style, low profile. Watch how the swing stays right next to his body, his arm close to his body as he lifts straight through the ball. Converting the tempo. Now it comes down to who wants to win the most. Right now, Marshall Holman is trailing by 1 pin, coming up in the key 9th frame.
You say you wanted this close, Nelson?
I knew it. These two players, they never get away from each other too far. And Marshall Holman's goal is to be bowler of the year. If he wants to be bowler of the year, I think he's going to have to beat this man very consistently, Mark Roth.
9th frame, left lane. Uh-oh. Got it high.
Once again, the lane that I said favored Roth is hurt Holman. He needs extra speed on the left-hand lane. He's not using it. So he has really dug himself a ditch right now. If he could convert this 610, he has a possible 216. Roth can come up in the 9th and 10th and just shut him out completely.
Now, you saw the graphic where Marshall Holman has beaten Mark twice on national television. He gets the spare in the 9th by covering the 610.
Mark Roth right now knows the situation on this key 9th frame. He is leading by 3, but he has a strike up. He can put the knockout blow right on Marshall Holman with a strike here.
And he did! Just a hint of reaction from Marshall Holman.
It's not over yet, though. Here's the situation. Mark Roth with a strike on this first ball in the 10th will shut out Marshall Holman. Mark Roth has a possible 239, but he needs at least 8 spare strike fill in the 10th for a 217. The best Holman can shoot is 216.
Up by 13 in the 10th.
Mark Roth keeping in a play, leaves the half 10 through it a little hard. Here's the situation. Mark Roth's spare strike would have 218. West Marshall Holman can shoot is 216. So Mark needs this spare and 9 on the next ball to lock up the tournament. Needs this spare.
Well, he's got the spare bow. Now he needs 9 pins with his next ball to lock it up. And there's Marshall Holman.
Roth with a 9-pin counter strike is the Quaker State Open champion. If he gets 8, 7, 6, or less, we have all sorts of possibilities. We could have a tie. Holman can still win. Roth, 9 or a strike, is the new champion.
Get it.
16. Marshall Holman can throw 3 strikes to tie and will go into sudden death. Roth has finished with a 216. Holman can win, can tie this match, and will go into sudden death, 2-frame roll-off.
And you think Marshall Holman doesn't know that? You
He
think
knows
he's
the
not
situation.
thinking about that, Bo?
The last time he was in this position was in the Ford Open against Jimmy Certain. He threw a clutch strike in the 9th and 10th to win the tournament. He now needs 3 to tie. The minute he doesn't strike, it is all over.
Here's one.
I'll tell you what, and he did not baby it. You could say goodbye to that 5-pin. He just dissected that rack, ripped the 5 right into the 7. Now he needs 2 more to tie. We would go into a sudden death, 2-frame roll-off.
2 of the outstanding young bowlers on the PBA Tour, and they are thrilling all of you, we trust, this afternoon. Mark Roth watching on as Marshall Holman tries to strike out. must have the strike.
And he got it.
One more strike by Marshall Holman. We have a tie, and we'll go into a 2-frame roll-off.
Frank Esposito calling for quiet as you look at the replay of the reaction of Marshall Holman. This crowd murmuring. They know what's going on here.
Ball on just ball.
And he breathed a heavy sigh of relief. Marshall Holman came ever so close. Left 3 in the 10th, and look at Mark Roth. $15,000. He knew he'd been in the fight. 216 to 213. Mark Roth wins the Quaker State Open Championship by 3 pins over that man, Marshall Holman. Of course, you and Marshall have been so great on the tour. It has to be something special for you to finally beat that young man on national television.
Well, it's been 2 matches he's beat me, and he's my doubles partner. And this week I lost one, tied one, and now let's get even today, and I beat him.
Okay, Mark. Mr. Quentin Wood of Quaker State, if we could have you come in, and Jeannie Halsey. And Mr. Wood, I think you have a nice little trophy here.
Yes, sir. Mark, that was a great game. Really exciting, and Quaker State is proud to have you as our Quaker State champion this year. And on behalf of the Quaker State Oil Refining Corporation and our numerous distributors throughout the country who sell our quality Quaker State motor oils, I wish to present to you this trophy, emblematic of your victory, and I hope you have many more to come. Congratulations.
And Jeannie Halsey with a quick word in the check. Jeannie, you want to give the check to Mark Roth?
Mark, my sincere congratulations. You think everybody in Texas is all millionaires. Well, this is Quaker State Oil money. Our check for $15,000. Congratulations, Mark.
Jeannie Halsey of the Forum Lanes in Grand Prairie, the winner and champion of the 2nd annual Quaker State Open. Mark Roth, leading money winner of the 1977 PBA Tour.